This is the third video in a series of videos on lesson planning. And in this video, we are going to look at the importance of a teacher being aware of the context of her lesson. Now, there are two types of context that I would like to talk about. The first is the context of the learners in which they find themselves. And the second part is the context of the content that you plan to present in a lesson. So let's look at the first context. It is very important long before you start your lesson that you consider the following. What does the context of the school look like where I am going to teach this lesson? What resources are available to me? What is the frame of reference of my students? Who are my learners? And how does this fit into the CAPS document? That is the second type of context. So if we look at the first type, in South Africa, we are blessed and cursed with an extreme diverse type of school context. And we have schools like the top two pictures here that are well resourced, and believe me, they have challenges as well. And we have schools like the photographs at the bottom here, where children do not have desks, where the principal's office is in a caravan. We have schools that can consider matric farewells. We have schools where children will never know what a matric farewell looks like and where they have to queue for possibly their only meal of the day. If you are a teacher at a school where children are dependent on a feeding scheme, you are not necessarily going to refer to their matric farewell dress in a lesson because it's a privilege that they might not have. It is exactly the same as teaching in a desert and asking the children who has ever seen snow, because they probably would never have. You cannot, if you are in a class in a school that might be struggling, ask students to take out their cell phones and Google something for you, because that is not part of the context. They do not understand what you are referring to. Some teachers have the tremendous responsibility to teach a class with 40, 50, 60 learners in, like some of the pictures that you see here. The context will be different. This teacher is not going to consider doing group work. He's definitely not going to be able to do a practical experiment if he's a science teacher. So he needs to really consider the context of his lesson carefully. This teacher will think differently about assignments that he gives because he's not going to have the ability to mark essays that's 600 words long for each of his students. So he's going to have to think creatively in terms of the assignments that he gives, in terms of the classwork that he gives, to still provide a learning opportunity for each of these 60 students. We also have to think in terms of context and resources. What resources do you have available? This teacher on the top left has taken all the resources that she has and she's teaching under a tree. But you will see she has a blackboard and she's using it effectively. And if you look behind her, there's more teachers with blackboards. The context will be here that it's going to be loud and noisy because the teachers are close to each other. There are no walls. Some of the other teachers, the ones in the bottom right corner, has computers they can work with. That changes the context of the lesson and it changes the outcomes of the lesson. I think we should never underestimate the creativity of a teacher when it comes to creating their own resources. It is wonderful what you can do with an empty toilet roll, and it is wonderful what you can do with a rock if you are willing to think creatively. But it is very important that we keep this in mind when we plan our lessons. The second type of context that I referred to was the context of the content. And I think this quote by Michael Ventura captures it, the essence of it very nicely. Without context, a piece of information is just a dot. It floats in your brain with a lot of other dots and it doesn't mean a damn thing. Knowledge is information in context. It's about connecting the dots. So when you plan your lesson, it is very important that you as a teacher go back to the CAPS document and have a look at what did they cover the previous day or the previous week or even the previous year in this theme, so that you do not repeat information and that you do not do a lot of information that these students has never had the necessary exposure to. So it's very important that you contextualize your lesson. If I want to teach children a skill today, do they already have the knowledge that is required? In the next video, we are going to talk about the lesson outcomes, and we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty of planning a lesson outcome. See you there.